The envelope was already waiting on my car seat when I opened the door. It was cream-colored, with no name or address. I looked around, but the street was empty. My heart started beating faster as I held it in my hands. Something about it made my chest feel tight. At home, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the envelope while making tea. My husband Mark had taken the kids to his mother's house for the weekend, so I was completely alone. The silence felt heavy. Finally, I opened it. Inside were just two things: an old black and white photo and a handwritten note. The photo showed a young woman holding a baby in front of a house. She looked tired but was smiling at the camera. Something about her face made me stop breathing. She looked like me. Then I looked at the baby, maybe 6 months old, with wide, curious eyes. A chill ran through my body. The note said, "You were taken. Start with Windermere." I read it again and again. The handwriting was small and careful. There was no signature. I had never heard of Windermere, but something inside me began to open, something that had been locked away for a long time. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept looking at the woman's face, then at my own reflection. The similarities were undeniable. I remembered my parents telling me once that I was adopted as a baby. They never spoke about it again, and I never asked. They said my birth mother was too young to care for me. That's what I had always believed. But now I wasn't sure. The next morning I searched online and found it was a small town 3 hours away. I called in sick at work, packed a bag and left without telling Mark. The road was quiet and empty. I kept thinking about the woman in the photo. If she was my birth mother, why had I never seen her before? And who sent the envelope? I arrived around noon. The town was small and old, with one main road. I went to the library and showed the photo to a grey-haired woman behind the desk. Her eyes widened. "That's Margaret Fields," she said. "She used to work at the diner. She passed away 5 or 6 years ago from cancer. She had a daughter, but the child disappeared. Everyone said the father took her. Margaret said she was taken. It broke her. My legs felt weak. I thanked her and walked to the diner, then to Margaret's old house. It was the same house from the photo, with peeling paint and dusty windows. I sat on the front steps and cried. I imagined the woman in the photo standing there, holding me. I stayed in Windermere for 2 days, asking questions and searching through old newspapers. I found an article about a missing baby in 1997, taken from her mother's home. The police never found the child. The date matched my birth year. My hands shook as I read it. When I returned home, I couldn't pretend anymore. I went to see my parents and showed them the photo. My mother's face went pale. "I always knew this day would come," she whispered. She told me they hadn't adopted me legally at first. A friend from church named Thomas Heller had brought me to them, saying my mother couldn't keep me. They believed him and loved me as their own. They were told to throw away the photo, but my mother had kept it hidden. I hired a private investigator named Amanda. 2 weeks later, she found an old nurse who had worked in Windermere when I was born. The nurse told me my mother had given birth at a clinic and loved me deeply. But 2 days later, both of us were gone. A man had visited, and after that, the bed was empty. My mother had filed a kidnapping report, but the case was closed when the baby was never found. Amanda also found a letter Margaret had written to me but never sent. It was kept in her old journal. I opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest girl," it began, "I don't know where you are or who has you now. I held you for 2 days. I counted your fingers and kissed your cheeks. They told me I was too young, too poor to be a mother, but I wanted you. I needed you. When they took my heart with you. If you ever find this, know that you were never a mistake. You were the best part of me." I visited her grave the next weekend. It was under a large tree with a simple stone that read, "Margaret Fields." She waited. She hoped. I brought flowers and the photo. I knelt down and talked to her about my life, my husband, my children. I told her I had been happy, but something had always felt missing. I promised I would tell the truth and keep her story alive. Weeks passed. I told my husband everything. He held me close and said he would support whatever I needed. I started a photo album. On the first page, I placed the old photo of Margaret and the baby. On the second, I added her letter. Then I added pictures of my own children laughing and playing. This was my story now, not simple or clean, but real. One afternoon, my daughter came into my room and pointed at Margaret's photo. "Who's that?" she asked. I smiled. "That's your grandmother, my birth mother. She was strong and brave, and she loved me very much." My daughter sat beside me and we looked through the album together. I didn't hide anything. She held my hand and listened. Sometimes healing begins like that, with small hands and quiet questions. Months later, I returned to Windermere one last time. The town felt different now, less like a mystery and more like a place I had known long ago. I stood in front of the house and took a photo of it. This time, I was the one holding the camera. I walked away slowly, the way someone walks when they finally put down a heavy bag they carried for too long. I had found the truth, and in doing so, I had found myself, and though my birth mother was gone, I carried her love with me now, woven into every part of who I had become.